The summer I turned 23, my father's best friend moved back to town, and my carefully constructed world tilted on its axis. I was home from graduate school, spending the break in my childhood bedroom with its faded posters and dusty trophies, trying to finish my thesis on contemporary American poetry. The house felt smaller than I remembered, the walls closer, the ceiling lower. Or maybe I'd just outgrown the space in ways that had nothing to do with physical dimensions. "Ethan," my father's voice boomed up the stairs, "come down here, I want you to meet someone." I saved my document and stretched, my shoulders popping after hours hunched over my laptop. Through my window, I could see the late afternoon sun painting everything golden, the kind of light that made our suburban street look almost magical. I grabbed a shirt from my chair and pulled it over my head as I padded downstairs barefoot. In the living room, my father stood with a man I didn't recognize, though something about his silhouette against the window seemed familiar. They were laughing about something, that easy, comfortable laughter of old friends. "Ethan, you remember Marcus, don't you, Marcus Reid?" The man turned, and my breath caught somewhere between my lungs and my throat. I did remember Marcus Reid, but my memories were of a younger man, my father's college roommate who'd visit occasionally when I was a kid. He'd ruffle my hair and ask about school and always seemed impossibly tall and cool. He'd moved to San Francisco for work when I was maybe 10, and I hadn't seen him since. This Marcus Reid was different. Still tall, yes, but filled out in ways that made my mouth go dry. He wore a simple white t-shirt and jeans, but they fit him like they'd been designed specifically for his frame. His dark hair had threads of silver at the temples, and his face had matured into something striking: strong jaw, thoughtful eyes, a mouth that quirked up at one corner when he smiled. And he was smiling at me now. "Ethan," he said, and his voice was deeper than I remembered, warm like bourbon. "Last time I saw you, you were knee-high and obsessed with dinosaurs." "Paleontology phase," I managed, finding my voice. "I'm into poetry now." "Much more practical career choice," he said, and his eyes sparkled with humor. I laughed despite myself, and something passed between us, a moment of recognition, of seeing each other as people rather than roles. Then my father was clapping Marcus on the shoulder, talking about how Marcus had taken a position at the university, how he'd be teaching architecture, how thrilled he was to have his best friend back in town. "I'm renting a place near campus," Marcus said. "Still getting settled. Your dad's been kind enough to let me crash here while I wait for my furniture to arrive." My heart did something complicated in my chest. "Of course," I said, "stay as long as you need." His eyes met mine again, held just a beat too long. "I appreciate that." That night, I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling, listening to the low rumble of voices from the back porch where Dad and Marcus sat with beers, catching up on 15 years of separation. I told myself the flutter in my stomach was nothing, that I was just thrown off by an unexpected attraction to someone who was fundamentally off-limits. Dad's best friend, older straight probably. I turned over and buried my face in my pillow, willing sleep to come and erase the image of Marcus's smile from my mind. It didn't work. The next morning, I woke to the smell of coffee and something baking. When I stumbled into the kitchen, still groggy and wearing my old college sweatpants and a ratty t-shirt, I found Marcus at the stove flipping pancakes. "Morning," he said, glancing over his shoulder. "Hope you don't mind, I'm an early riser and I figured I'd make myself useful." "You cook," the words came out before I could filter them. He laughed. "Shocking, I know, a man who can operate a stove. Your dad's still asleep, but I made enough for 3." I poured myself coffee and settled at the kitchen table, watching him work. He moved with confidence, comfortable in our space in a way that should have felt presumptuous but somehow didn't. The morning light caught the silver in his hair, and I noticed things I hadn't the day before: the way his forearms flexed as he worked, the breadth of his shoulders, the easy grace of his movements. "So," he said, sliding a plate in front of me, "poetry, what kind?" "Contemporary, mostly. My thesis is on queer narratives in 21st century American poetry." I watched for a reaction, that slight stiffening that sometimes happened when I mentioned my research, the telltale sign of discomfort. But Marcus just nodded, settling across from me with his own plate. "That must be fascinating, the intersection of identity and art, how personal experience shapes creative expression. You've given this some thought." "Architecture isn't so different," he said. We design spaces, but we're really designing experiences, shaping how people move through and interact with the world. Identity plays a huge role in that. We talked through breakfast, an easy flowing conversation that jumped from poetry to architecture to the books we were reading, the music we loved, our thoughts on the city and how it had changed. My father eventually joined us, but even his presence didn't break the bubble that seemed to have formed around Marcus and me. Over the next few days, a pattern emerged. Marcus would be up early making coffee. I'd join him and we'd talk until my father woke. During the day, Marcus would go to the university to set up his office or meet with the department, and I'd work on my thesis. Evenings, the three of us would have dinner together, but afterward Marcus and I would often end up on the back porch or in the living room, continuing conversations that ranged from philosophical to silly to deeply personal. I learned that Marcus had been married briefly in his late 20s, that he loved to travel but had never been to Japan despite it being on his bucket list, that he played guitar but hadn't picked one up in years, that he'd left San Francisco not because of his job but because he needed a change, a reset, a chance to figure out who he wanted to be in the next chapter of his life. "Sometimes you need to go backward to move forward," he said one night, looking up at the stars from our porch. "Come back to your roots, remember who you were before you became who you are, you know." "I do," I said softly. "I think that's why I came home this summer instead of staying at school." He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I felt seen in a way that made my skin prickle with awareness. "You're trying to figure something out," he said. It wasn't a question. "Aren't we all?" He smiled. "Fair enough." It happened on a Thursday. Marcus's furniture had been delayed again and he'd been staying with us for almost 2 weeks. I'd grown used to his presence, the way the house felt more alive with him in it, the sound of his laughter, the smell of his cologne, the casual intimacy of shared space. I was working at the dining room table when he came in from a run, sweaty and breathing hard, his t-shirt clinging to his chest. He grabbed a water from the fridge and downed half of it, and I tried very hard to focus on my laptop screen instead of the way his throat moved as he drank. "How's it going?" he asked, coming to peer over my shoulder at my work. "Stuck," I admitted. "I'm trying to analyze this poem, but I can't quite articulate what I'm thinking." He leaned closer and I could smell him, sweat and soap and something else, something uniquely Marcus. My brain short-circuited. "Read it to me," he said. "What?" "The poem, read it out loud, sometimes hearing it helps." So I did, my voice feeling strange in the quiet house. It was a love poem, raw and aching, about desire and denial and the things we can't let ourselves have. As I read, I became hyper-aware of Marcus standing behind me, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body. When I finished, silence stretched between us. "What's it making you feel?" he asked, his voice lower than usual. I struggled for words, like the poet is describing something impossible, wanting someone who exists in a different world across boundaries that can't be crossed. "But they cross them anyway," Marcus said. "In the poem, they acknowledge the desire even if they can't act on it." I turned in my chair to look up at him, and something in his expression made my heart hammer. His eyes were dark, intense, fixed on my face with a focus that felt like touch. "Marcus, your dad's at the hardware store," he said, apropos of nothing. "Won't be back for an hour." Time seemed to slow. I could hear my own breathing, the tick of the clock in the kitchen, the distant sound of a lawnmower from a neighbor's yard. "Why are you telling me that?" He held my gaze. "Because I think you should know we're alone, in case that matters." My throat went dry. "Does it matter?" "That depends." "On what?" "On whether I'm completely misreading this situation." He stepped back, giving me space, and I could see the uncertainty in his face now, the vulnerability. This man, this confident, self-assured man, was nervous because of me. I stood, my chair scraping against the floor. "You're not," I said, "misreading it." The relief that crossed his face was palpable. Thank God, I've been driving myself crazy wondering if I was seeing something that wasn't there. "How long?" I asked. "Since the first morning, when you came into the kitchen half asleep and completely yourself. You looked at me and I thought," he broke off, running a hand through his hair. "I thought, oh no, this is going to be complicated. You're my dad's best friend." "I know. You're staying in our house." "I know. I'm 23, you're 41, he finished. "I know that too, believe me, I've listed every reason this is a terrible idea." "And He took a step closer, then another, and I can't stop thinking about you anyway. I closed the distance between us, my heart pounding so hard I thought he must be able to hear it. Up close, I could see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes, the fine lines at their corners, the perfect imperfection of his slightly crooked nose. We shouldn't, I whispered. Definitely not, he agreed. It would be so messy. Disastrously so. Marcus. Tell me to back off, he said. Tell me you're not interested and I'll never bring this up again. We'll pretend this conversation never happened. I should have. It would have been the smart thing, the safe thing. But I'd spent so much of my life being smart and safe, and standing there with Marcus looking at me like I was something precious and terrifying all at once, I found I didn't want to be smart anymore. I can't tell you that, I said, because I'd be lying. His hand came up, hesitant, and cupped my cheek. His palm was warm and slightly rough, and I leaned into the touch without meaning to. We need to be careful, he said, your father. I know. I don't want to hurt him or you. I know. But I also don't think I can just ignore this. I don't want you to, I said. He let out a shaky breath, his thumb brushing across my cheekbone. You're making it very hard to be the responsible adult here. Good, I said, and surprised myself with my boldness. He laughed, soft and low, and the sound went through me like electricity. Then he leaned down slowly, giving me every opportunity to pull away. When his lips brushed mine, feather-light and questioning, I made a sound I'd probably be embarrassed about later and pressed closer. The kiss deepened, and it was nothing like I'd imagined and everything I'd hoped for. Marcus kissed like he did everything else, with intention and focus and a careful attention that made me feel like I was the only thing in his world. His other hand came to my waist, steadying me, and I gripped his shoulders, needing something to anchor myself to. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. We should talk about this, he said. Later, I agreed. Set some ground rules. Definitely. Figure out what this is. Marcus. Yes. Stop talking. He smiled against my lips as he kissed me again. We stayed like that, kissing in the dining room like teenagers until we heard my father's truck in the driveway. We sprang apart, and Marcus headed for the stairs to shower while I returned to my laptop with shaking hands and a racing heart. My father came in with bags from the hardware store, cheerful and oblivious, and I helped him unpack while my mind spun. What had I just done? What happened now? And why, despite all the logical reasons this was a mistake, did I feel more alive than I had in months? The rules we established were simple but necessary. Nothing physical when my father was home, no lingering looks, no touches that could be misconstrued. In public, we were just Marcus and Ethan, his best friend's son, two people who got along well. Behind closed doors, when we were alone, we could be something else, something we were still defining. I want to do this right, Marcus said the next day when we'd stolen an hour together at a coffee shop across town where no one who knew my father would see us. Not hide you exactly, but be discreet until we figure out what this is. And when do we tell my dad? I asked, stirring sugar into my latte. His expression grew serious. That's the question, isn't it? Do we tell him now when this is just starting and might not go anywhere, risk his friendship for something that could fizzle out? Or do we wait, I continued, and risk him finding out we've been keeping this from him? There's no good answer. No, I agreed, there's not. We sat in silence for a moment, the enormity of what we were attempting settling over us. We could stop, Marcus said quietly, before this goes any further, save everyone the potential hurt. I looked at him across the small table, at the way the afternoon light caught in his eyes, at the slight furrow between his brows that appeared when he was worried. The thought of stopping, of going back to pretending I didn't feel this pull toward him, made my chest ache. Is that what you want? No, he said immediately, but I'm trying to be practical, one of us should be. I don't want practical, I said. I spend my whole life being practical, planning, analyzing, overthinking everything. For once, I want to just feel something, follow where it leads. He reached across the table, his fingers brushing mine. Such a small touch, but it sent warmth flooding through me. Then let's make a deal, he said. We give this a real chance. We're careful around your dad, but we're honest with each other. And if it starts to feel wrong, if either of us gets uncomfortable, we talk about it. No ghosting, no passive-aggressive nonsense. We're adults, we communicate. I can do that. And Ethan, he squeezed my hand gently. I need you to know that I'm taking this seriously. This isn't some midlife crisis fling for me. I wouldn't risk my friendship with your father for something meaningless. The intensity in his voice made my breath catch. What is it then? I'm still figuring that out, he admitted, but it feels important. You feel important. Over the following weeks, we fell into a rhythm. My father, oblivious, was thrilled that Marcus and I got along so well. He'd make jokes about how I'd finally found someone who could keep up with my intellectual rambling, about how Marcus needed a young person around to keep him from getting old and boring. If he only knew. Marcus's furniture finally arrived and he moved into his rental house near campus. My father helped him unpack and I tagged along, watching as they assembled furniture and argued good-naturedly about the best way to arrange the living room. What do you think, Ethan? Marcus asked, gesturing between two different configurations. I like it against the window, I said, pointing, more natural light for reading. Practical and aesthetic, I like it. His eyes met mine and there was a warmth there that my father couldn't see. That evening, after my father left to meet some old friends for dinner, I stayed behind to help Marcus finish organizing. You didn't have to stay, he said, but he was smiling as he said it. I wanted to see your place properly set up. We worked together in comfortable silence, finding spots for books and kitchen items, hanging artwork. His taste was impeccable, mid-century modern furniture, carefully curated art pieces, shelves full of architecture books and novels and vinyl records. I like it, I said, settling onto his couch. It suits you. He sat next to me close enough that our thighs touched. Yeah. Sophisticated but comfortable, intentional but lived in. Is that how you see me? I turned to face him. Am I wrong? No, he said softly, though I'm flattered that's your perception. How do you see me? He considered the question seriously, his hand coming to rest on my knee. Brilliant, thoughtful, sometimes too much in your own head, young in some ways but old in others, like you've been waiting for permission to really live. The accuracy of it stole my breath. And am I asked, living? More every day, I think. He kissed me then, slow and deep, and I melted into him. We'd kissed several times since that first afternoon, stolen moments in coffee shops and his car, and one memorable occasion in the university library where he'd pulled me into a dusty corner between shelves. But this was different. This was his space, his home, and there was no clock ticking down until we had to separate. We could take our time. Ethan, he murmured against my lips, we should slow down. Why? I was already pulling at his shirt. Because once we start this, there's no taking it back. Good. He pulled back to look at me, his hands framing my face. I'm serious, are you sure you're not feeling pressured? Marcus, I'm literally trying to undress you, I think I'm sure. He laughed and the sound filled something in me I hadn't known was empty. Okay, but we're talking boundaries first. So we did, sitting on his couch in the fading evening light, having the most adult conversation I'd ever had about sex and expectations and what we wanted from each other. It should have been awkward, but with Marcus, it wasn't. He was matter-of-fact and kind and made me feel safe in a way I hadn't experienced before. I've been tested recently, he said. I'm clean and I have protection. Me too, I mean tested, it's been a while since, I trailed off, feeling my cheeks heat. No judgment here, he said gently, we all have different experiences. I haven't been with many people, I admitted. A couple of guys in college but nothing serious, nothing like this. Like what? Like something that matters. His expression softened, it matters to me too. What followed was transcendent, there's no other word for it. Marcus was attentive and patient, reading my responses, checking in, making sure I was okay. When I got nervous, he slowed down. When I urged him on, he gave me what I needed. He made me feel cherished and desired in equal measure. Afterward, lying tangled together in his bed, sweaty and satisfied and half asleep, I felt more at peace than I had in years. Hey, Marcus said softly, his fingers tracing patterns on my back. You okay? Better than okay. No regrets. I propped myself up to look at him. Do you have regrets? God, no, but I'm not the one who just slept with his dad's best friend. I winced when you put it like that. Sorry, bad joke. No, I said slowly, you're right, this is complicated, but Marcus, I don't regret this, I won't regret this. He pulled me down for a kiss, soft and sweet. Good, because I'm already thinking about when I can see you again. Grady. Guilty. I stayed until late, not wanting to leave the warm cocoon of his bed and his arms. Eventually, though, reality intruded. I had to get home before my father started wondering where I was. Text me when you get back, Marcus said, walking me to the door. Let me know you're safe. It's a 10-minute drive. Humor, mate. I kissed him goodbye, then forced myself to leave before I changed my mind and stayed the night. Driving home through quiet streets, I caught myself smiling. My life had become infinitely more complicated, but I couldn't bring myself to care. For the first time in a long time, I felt fully alive. Summer slipped by in a haze of stolen moments and secret smiles. I'd work on my thesis during the day, meet Marcus for lunch or coffee when we could manage it, spend evenings at family dinners where we'd carefully avoid looking at each other too long. Then, when my father was asleep or out with friends, I'd slip away to Marcus's house. We'd talk for hours about everything and nothing. He told me about his failed marriage, how he and his ex-wife had loved each other but not been in love, how they'd parted as friends. I told him about coming out to my parents, my mother's quiet acceptance, my father's struggle to understand but ultimate support. Does he know you're gay? I asked one night, curled up next to Marcus on his couch. Your dad? Yeah, he knows. I told him years ago when I was still married. I think it confused him more than anything. He asked how I could be attracted to men and married to a woman. What did you say? That sexuality is complicated. That I've always been attracted to both men and women, but I'd only ever dated women because that's what seemed expected. It wasn't until my 30s that I really examined what I wanted. And what do you want? He pulled me closer. Right now, you. We explored the city together, finding places where we wouldn't run into anyone who knew my father. A bookstore in the artsy district where we'd browse for hours. A hole-in-the-wall restaurant that served incredible Thai food. A park by the river where we could walk and talk without worrying about being overheard. Marcus introduced me to architecture in ways my college art history classes never had. He'd point out details in buildings, explain the philosophy behind different design movements, show me how to read a cityscape. I'd reciprocate with poetry, reading him my favorite pieces, analyzing the way language created emotion and imagery. You light up when you talk about poetry, he said one afternoon. We were at his house, ostensibly so I could use his printer for my thesis, but we'd gotten distracted making out on his couch. It's beautiful to watch. I could say the same about you and architecture. Think we're both just passionate about what we do. Among other things, I said, kissing him. He laughed against my lips. Your trouble, you know that. You like it. I really do. But it wasn't all secret rendezvous and philosophical discussions. We also did normal couple things, or as normal as we could manage given our situation. We grocery shopped together, me helping him learn the local stores. We watched movies, arguing good-naturedly about which streaming service had the better content. We cooked dinner, working around each other in his kitchen with an ease that felt domestic and right. One Sunday morning, I woke up in his bed to find him already awake, watching me with a soft expression. What? I asked, my voice rough with sleep. Just thinking how much I like waking up with you here. I scooted closer, tucking myself against his side. I like being here. Your dad thinks you're at a coffee shop working on your thesis. I am working on my thesis, just later. He pressed a kiss to the top of my head. We can't keep this secret forever, you know. My stomach clenched. I know. I've been thinking about how to tell him. And I don't have a good answer. Every scenario I play out ends badly. I propped myself up to look at him. Do you want to stop before it gets harder? No, he said firmly. Do you? No. Then we need a plan because summer's going to end, you'll go back to school, and then what? Do we try long distance? Do we call it a summer fling? The thought of this ending made me feel physically ill. Is that what you want, a fling? Ethan, he cupped my face in his hands. I'm falling in love with you, that's the opposite of a fling. The world seemed to stop. Say that again, I whispered. I'm falling in love with you, he repeated, his eyes searching mine. I probably shouldn't be, this is the worst possible timing, the most complicated situation, but I am. I love you too, I said, and felt the truth of it settle in my chest. I think I have for a while. He kissed me then, deep and slow, and we didn't talk anymore for a long time. Later, wrapped in his sheets with afternoon sun streaming through the windows, we finally discussed the practical realities. I could defer for a semester, I said, stay here, finish my thesis remotely. That's a big decision. Or you could come with me, universities always need architecture professors. Also a big decision, he said, and one that would require telling your father. So we tell him. Just like that. Marcus, he's going to find out eventually. The longer we wait, the worse it'll be, and I'm tired of sneaking around. I want to be able to hold your hand in public. I want to introduce you as my boyfriend, not my dad's friend who I happen to hang out with. He was quiet for a long moment. You're right, we need to tell him. When? Soon, let me figure out the right way to approach it. I nodded, relief and terror warring in my chest. We were really doing this, making it real. The conversation happened the following Saturday night, though not the way we'd planned. My father had invited Marcus over for dinner, a regular occurrence that usually gave me knots of anxiety and anticipation. I'd help cook, Marcus would bring wine, and we'd all sit around the table making conversation while I tried not to stare at Marcus too obviously. This night my father seemed distracted, quieter than usual. When Marcus asked if something was wrong, he set down his fork and looked between us. I need to ask you both something, he said. My heart started pounding. Sure, Marcus said, his voice carefully neutral. What's on your mind? Are you two, he paused, seeming to struggle with the words. Are you involved romantically? The silence that followed was deafening. I looked at Marcus, he looked at me. We'd been caught and there was no point in denying it. How did you know? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. My father laughed, but there was no humor in it. I'm not blind, Ethan, the way you look at each other when you think I'm not watching, the convenient excuses for why you're both always busy at the same times, Marcus's sudden interest in poetry, you showing up with coffee from that place near Marcus's house. Tom, Marcus started, but my father held up a hand. I want to hear it from both of you. Are you in a relationship? Yes, I said, lifting my chin, we are. My father's jaw tightened, he turned to Marcus. How long? About 2 months, Marcus admitted. 2 months, my father stood up, packing away from the table. 2 months you've been lying to me, both of you. We weren't lying exactly, I began, but he cut me off. What would you call it then? Omission, secrecy, you've been sneaking around behind my back with my son Marcus, my son. I know how it looks, Marcus said, standing as well, but this isn't what you think. Then explain it to me, my father demanded. Explain how my best friend seduced my son. Dad, I shot to my feet, that's not what happened. Then what did happen, Ethan? Because from where I'm standing it looks like Marcus took advantage of you. No, I said firmly, it wasn't like that at all, we both wanted this, it just happened. Things don't just happen, Ethan, he's 41 years old, you're 23, there's a power imbalance there. I'm an adult, I said, I made my own choices. Did you, he turned to Marcus, or did you manipulate him, use your age and experience too? Stop, Marcus said quietly but with steel in his voice. I understand you're angry, Tom, you have every right to be, but I won't stand here and let you accuse me of something I didn't do. I didn't manipulate Ethan, I didn't take advantage of him, we fell for each other and yes, we should have told you sooner but we weren't ready. Ready for what? For me to give you my blessing? That's not happening. I don't need your blessing, I said, surprising myself with my boldness. I'd like it but I don't need it, I love him, Dad, and he loves me. My father's face crumpled and for a moment he looked older than I'd ever seen him. You're my son, he's my best friend, how am I supposed to be okay with this? I don't know, I admitted, but we're asking you to try. He shook his head. I need time, he grabbed his keys from the counter. I need to not be here right now. Tom, Marcus started. Don't, my father said, just don't, I can't look at you right now. He left, the door slamming behind him. In the silence that followed, I felt tears prick my eyes. Marcus pulled me into his arms and I buried my face in his chest. That went about as badly as it could have, I said. Yeah, he agreed, it did. What do we do now? We give him time and hope he comes around. But as the days passed, it became clear that coming around might not be in the cards. My father avoided me when I was home, staying late at work or leaving early in the morning before I woke up. He'd stopped answering Marcus's calls entirely. I moved most of my things to Marcus's house, unable to stand the tension at home. Marcus tried to hide how much it was hurting him, but I could see it in the slump of his shoulders, the worry lines around his eyes. He was my best friend, he said one night, staring at his phone like willing it to ring would make my father call. We've known each other for 30 years. I'm sorry, I said, feeling the weight of guilt. This is my fault. No, he said firmly, pulling me close. It's not, we both knew the risks and I'd make the same choice again. Even losing your best friend. He kissed my forehead, even that, because the alternative is losing you and that's not something I'm willing to do. 2 weeks after the confrontation, my father finally agreed to meet with us. Marcus suggested neutral ground, a park bench near the river, a place they'd gone fishing together when they were younger. We sat on either side of my father, the three of us watching the water flow past. I've been doing a lot of thinking, my father said finally, talking to your mother too. I blinked. Mom knows. I called her the night I found out. She's less surprised than I was. She suspected. Apparently mothers have better gaydar than fathers. He smiled slightly, but it didn't reach his eyes. She thinks I'm being stubborn and irrational. Are you? Marcus asked gently. My father sighed. Maybe, probably, I need you both to understand this from my perspective. Marcus, you're like a brother to me, have been since college, and Ethan, you're my son. You're supposed to be separate parts of my life, not intertwined like this. I get it, I said, but we didn't plan this, Dad. We didn't wake up one day and decide to make your life difficult. I know that, intellectually I know that. He turned to look at Marcus, but emotionally it feels like a betrayal, like you both chose each other over me. That's not what happened, Marcus said. Tom, you're still one of the most important people in my life. That hasn't changed. Hasn't it? My father's voice cracked, because I feel like I lost my best friend and my son in one night. You didn't lose us, I said, tears streaming down my face now. We're right here, we've always been here. Then why didn't you tell me? Because we were scared, Marcus admitted. Scared of exactly this, of losing you, of hurting you. We handled it badly and I'm sorry for that, but I'm not sorry for falling in love with your son. I can't be. My father was quiet for a long time. Then, how serious is this? Marcus and I exchanged glances. Very, I said. I'm thinking about deferring my program to stay here, or Marcus might come with me when I go back to school. We're still figuring out the logistics, but this is real, Dad. This isn't a fling or a phase. And you're sure? He looked at me. You're sure this is what you want, because there's no going back from this. If it doesn't work out, you'll have lost more than just a boyfriend. I'm sure, I said. He turned to Marcus. And you're ready to risk everything for this. I already have, Marcus said simply. My father stood up, walking to the edge of the river. We watched him, holding our breath, waiting for his verdict. When he turned back, his eyes were red. I don't know if I can give you my blessing, he said. Not yet, maybe not for a while, but you're both adults and I can't control your choices, and I don't want to lose either of you. It wasn't forgiveness, it wasn't acceptance, but it was a start. Thank you, I said, standing to hug him. He held me tight the way he used to when I was little and had fallen and scraped my knee. I love you, kid, even when you make terrible decisions. Hey, I protested weakly. He's got a point, Marcus said, but he was smiling. Don't push it, my father said, but there was less ice in his voice. We walked back to the parking lot together, and for the first time in weeks, the weight on my chest eased slightly. We had a long way to go, but at least we were moving in the right direction. The rest of summer was a delicate dance of rebuilding trust. My father started joining us for dinners again, though the conversation was stilted at first. He'd ask about my thesis, Marcus's work, the weather, safe topics that didn't require acknowledging our relationship, but gradually, inevitably, the awkwardness faded. We'd slip into old patterns of teasing and debating and telling stories, and for moments at a time, it felt almost normal. One night, my father brought up a memory from when Marcus and I had first met, when I was 9 and obsessed with dinosaurs. You spent 2 hours explaining the difference between a Brachiosaurus and a Brontosaurus to Marcus, he said, laughing. And Marcus listened to every word like it was the most fascinating thing he'd ever heard. It was pretty fascinating, Marcus said, grinning at me. Kid knew his stuff. I had flashcards, I admitted. You were adorable, Marcus said, and then seemed to realize what he'd said in front of my father. But my father just shook his head, smiling. You've always had a soft spot for him, haven't you, even back then? He was a good kid, Marcus said carefully. He still is, my father said, and the weight behind those words, the acknowledgement, the acceptance, made my throat tight. After dinner, as we were cleaning up, my father pulled me aside. I'm trying, he said quietly, to be okay with this. It's not easy seeing you two together, but I can see you're happy, and that matters more than my discomfort. I love you, Dad. I said. I love you too, he paused, and I love Marcus, which makes this whole thing complicated as hell, but I'm working on it. That's all we can ask for. As August drew to a close, Marcus and I had to make decisions about the future. My program would resume in September, 2 states away. We could try long distance, but both of us knew that wouldn't be sustainable long term. Come with me, I said one night, lying in his bed with my head on his chest. Take a sabbatical or see if there are any visiting professor positions. We could get a place together. And uproot my entire life. You said you came back here for a reset. Maybe the reset is somewhere new with me. He was quiet, his fingers tracing patterns on my shoulder. You'd want that to live together. Marcus, I already spend most nights here. We're basically living together now. That's different from officially cohabitating. That's a big step. Are you saying you don't want to? No, he said quickly. I'm saying I want to make sure you've thought this through. You're young. You should be focusing on your education, your career, not playing house with a man 18 years your senior. I sat up to look at him. Don't do that. Don't infantilize me or act like I don't know what I want. I'm not. You are, I said. You're doing the thing where you make decisions for me because you think you know better, but I'm an adult, Marcus. I know what I want, and I want this. I want you. His expression softened. I want you too. God, Ethan, I want this so much it scares me. Then what's the problem? The problem is that I love you enough to want what's best for you, even if that's not me. If staying here to finish your program in person would be better for your career. It wouldn't, I interrupted. I've already talked to my advisor. She said I'm far enough along that I could easily do the rest remotely with just occasional visits to campus. And there are amazing poetry programs where you are. I could transfer or audit classes or just exist in that community. You've really thought about this? Of course I have, haven't you? I've thought about little else, he admitted. I just didn't want to pressure you. So, he pulled me back down, kissing me slowly. So let's do it. Let's find a place together and build a life and see where this goes. Joy exploded in my chest. Yeah. Yeah, on one condition. What? We tell people the truth, no more hiding, no more secrecy. I want to introduce you as my partner, not as Tom's son who I happen to know. Deal, I said, kissing him again. We spent the next 2 weeks apartment hunting long distance, video chatting with landlords and comparing floor plans. We settled on a 2-bedroom in a neighborhood Marcus's colleague recommended, close to campus for him, near a great library for me, with a coffee shop on the corner and a park within walking distance. 2 bedrooms? My father asked when we showed him pictures. We were at his house for dinner, the 3 of us falling into a new normal. 1 for sleeping, 1 for Ethan's office, Marcus explained. He needs space to write. Practical, my father said, but he was smiling. We're practical people, I said. Are you? He looked between us. Because moving in together after knowing each other for 3 months doesn't seem all that practical to me. Dad. I'm not judging, he said, holding up his hands, just observing you two move fast. When you know, Marcus said, reaching over to squeeze my hand. My father shook his head, but he was still smiling. Well, you're going to need furniture. I've got some stuff in storage from when your mom and I downsized. You're welcome to it. The offer, small as it was, felt monumental. It was my father's way of saying he supported us, that he was willing to help us build our life together. Thanks, Dad, I said, my voice thick. Just be happy, okay, both of you, that's all I want. Moving day was chaos. My father drove down with us, helping to load and unload the truck. He grumbled good-naturedly about young people and their lack of furniture organization skills, and Marcus bantered back with the ease of long friendship. Watching them together, joking and working side by side, made something settle in my chest. We were going to be okay. By evening, the apartment was a disaster of boxes and half-assembled furniture, but it was ours. My father ordered pizza, and we sat on the floor eating out of boxes and planning where everything should go. You need curtains, my father said, looking at the bare windows, and probably a better couch than that thing from Craigslist. The couch has character, Marcus defended. The couch has questionable stains. We're going to reupholster it, I said. You don't know how to reupholster furniture. YouTube exists, Dad. He laughed, shaking his head. God help you both. Before he left to drive back, my father pulled me into a hug. Call me if you need anything, he said, and visit when you can. I will. He turned to Marcus and after a moment's hesitation pulled him into a hug too. Take care of him. I will, Marcus promised. And Tom, Marcus added as they pulled apart, thank you for giving us a chance. Yeah, well, my father cleared his throat, you're still my best friend even if you're dadding my son. Especially because I'm dadding your son. Don't push it, my father said, but he was smiling. After he left, Marcus and I stood in the doorway of our apartment, looking at the mess that was our new home. Second thoughts, Marcus asked. Not even a little, I said. We spent the evening unpacking, stopping frequently to kiss or get distracted by conversation. By midnight, we'd made minimal progress but had christened several rooms in ways that probably violated our lease. We should sleep, Marcus said, pulling me close. I have to be at the university early tomorrow. 5 more minutes, I said, not wanting to move from where I was sprawled across him on our questionable Craigslist couch. He laughed, the sound rumbling through his chest. Okay, 5 more minutes. But 5 minutes turned into an hour of talking the way it always did with us. About his first day of classes, my thesis progress, what we wanted this life to look like. The conversation wandered from practical to philosophical, touching on dreams and fears and all the small details that make up a shared life. I want to travel, Marcus said, take you to all the places I've been, show you architecture from different cultures, Rome, Tokyo, Barcelona. I want to write, I said, finish this thesis but then maybe try my hand at creative work, poetry of my own, not just analysis. You should, he said, you're brilliant, you'd be amazing. You haven't read anything I've written. Then show me. So I did. I pulled up my laptop and feeling vulnerable and exposed, showed him some of the poems I'd been working on. Love poems mostly because how could I write about anything else when I was so completely overwhelmed by feeling? He read in silence, his expression serious and focused. When he finished, he looked up at me with something like wonder. Ethan, he said softly, these are beautiful. You're biased. I'm honest, these are really, truly beautiful, you should submit them somewhere. They're too personal. The best art is personal. They're about you, I admitted, about us, about this whole summer and how it felt like falling and flying at the same time. He set the laptop aside and pulled me into his lap. Then they're definitely getting published because the world should know how it feels to fall in love with you. Sap, I said, but I was smiling as I kissed him. We finally made it to bed around 2 in the morning, exhausted and happy and tangled together in sheets that smelled like fresh laundry detergent. As I drifted off to sleep, I thought about how much had changed in 3 months. How I'd come home for summer expecting nothing more than a quiet few months to work on my thesis, and instead I'd found this love and adventure and a whole new life. The fall semester started, and we settled into routines. Marcus would wake early, making coffee and grading papers at the kitchen table while I slept in. I'd emerge around 9, bleary-eyed and searching for caffeine, and he'd already have a cup waiting for me made exactly how I liked it. We'd have breakfast together, talking about our plans for the day before he headed to campus and I settled in my office to write. My thesis advisor, Dr. Morrison, had been skeptical when I'd told her I was moving to continue my work remotely. But when I showed her the progress I'd made over summer, the new angles I was exploring, her concerns evaporated. "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it," she said during one of our video calls. "Your analysis has deepened considerably, more nuanced, more personal." If she only knew that the reason was falling in love with a man who challenged me to think differently about everything. I joined a poetry workshop at the local university, a group of graduate students and community members who met weekly to share work and critique. The first night I attended, I was nervous, the new person in an established group. But they welcomed me warmly, and I found myself looking forward to Thursday evenings, to the stimulating discussions and diverse perspectives. One week, I shared one of my love poems, not one of the explicitly Marcus-focused ones, but something more universal about queer desire and acceptance. The response was overwhelming. People connected with it, shared their own experiences, asked questions about my process. "You should submit to journals," one of the other students said. "This is really good." "Maybe," I said, non-committal. But later at home, I mentioned it to Marcus. "You should," he said immediately. "Send them out, see what happens." "What if they get rejected?" "Then they get rejected and you submit somewhere else. That's how this works, right?" He was right, of course. So over the next few weeks, I carefully selected journals and submitted my work. The rejection letters started arriving quickly, polite form responses that somehow still stung. But then, buried among the no's, came a yes. A small but respected literary journal wanted to publish 3 of my poems. I called Marcus at work, unable to wait until he got home. "They said yes," I said as soon as he answered. "Marcus, they want to publish me." "That's amazing," I could hear the smile in his voice. "I'm so proud of you. This calls for celebration. Dinner out tonight." We went to a nice restaurant, the kind of place with white tablecloths and extensive wine lists. Over pasta and wine, we toasted to my success, and I felt like I was floating. "To my brilliant poet," Marcus said, raising his glass. "To the man who believed in me," I countered. "I'll always believe in you." Marcus's semester was going well too. He'd been nervous about teaching again after so many years, but his students loved him. I'd sat in on one of his lectures once, watching him bring architectural theory to life with passion and humor. He was a natural, commanding the room without being domineering, making complex concepts accessible. "You're hot when you teach," I told him afterward. He'd laughed. "That's very inappropriate, Mr. Caldwell." "Good thing I'm not your student then." We navigated the weird dynamics of being at the same university, him as faculty, me as a visiting student community member. We kept our relationship professional on campus, but everyone knew. His colleagues would smile knowingly when I showed up to meet him for lunch. My workshop members teased me gently about dating a professor. "At least he's not your professor," one of them said. "That would be messy." "It's complicated enough as it is," I admitted. But complicated didn't mean bad. In fact, our life together felt remarkably uncomplicated in the ways that mattered. We fit together easily, complementing each other's strengths and weaknesses. He was organized and practical, I was creative and spontaneous. He cooked, I cleaned. He was a morning person, I came alive at night. We balanced each other. Our apartment gradually transformed from a collection of boxes into a home. We hung art on the walls, prints of his favorite buildings, posters from poetry readings I'd attended. We filled bookshelves with our combined library, our tastes overlapping more than I'd expected. We acquired plants that I promptly killed and Marcus patiently revived. We hosted dinner parties, inviting Marcus's colleagues and my workshop friends. The first time we had people over, I was nervous about how they'd react to us as a couple, to the age difference, to all of it. But no one seemed to care. They just saw 2 people clearly in love, building a life together. "You two are disgustingly cute," one of Marcus's fellow professors said, watching as we worked together in the kitchen. "It's nauseating." "Thank you," Marcus said. "No, I mean it. My husband and I have been together 15 years and we still bicker about dishes. You two are in the honeymoon phase." "Give it time," her husband called from the living room. "They'll get there." But months passed and we didn't. We had disagreements, sure, about money, about where to spend holidays, about whose turn it was to take out the trash. But we talked through them, compromised, found solutions. We were a team. My father visited for Thanksgiving, the first time seeing us in our space as a couple. I was nervous, worried that seeing us domestically might trigger his discomfort again. But he seemed genuinely happy, complimenting our decorating and joking with Marcus about their fantasy football league. Over Thanksgiving dinner, a disaster I'd attempted to cook before Marcus had taken over, my father raised his glass. "I want to make a toast," he said. "When you two first told me about your relationship, I was angry, hurt, I felt betrayed, but watching you together these past few months, seeing how happy you are, how you support each other, I was wrong to react the way I did. You're good together, you make each other better, and that's all any parent wants for their kid." I felt tears prick my eyes. "Dad." "Let me finish," he said. "Marcus, you've been my best friend for 30 years, and Ethan, you're my son." Combining those relationships was jarring, but I see now that it's not a combination, it's a multiplication. You make each other happier, which makes me happier. So here's to you both and to whatever future you build together. We clinked glasses, and I saw Marcus wipe at his eyes discreetly. After my father left, Marcus and I did dishes together in comfortable silence. "That was big for him," I said, "the toast." "It meant everything," Marcus agreed. "I was so afraid I'd lost him forever." "You could never," I said, "he loves you too much. Even though I'm corrupting his son." "Especially because of that," I joked. He flicked water at me and I retaliated, and before long we were laughing and soaking wet, the dishes forgot. But life wasn't all poetry publications and romantic dinners. Real relationships face real challenges, and ours was no exception. The first major fight happened in January, triggered by something small that revealed larger tensions. I'd been working on my thesis for hours, frustration building as I struggled with a particularly challenging section. Marcus came home from a department meeting in a foul mood, his attempts at small talk met with my distracted one-word responses. "Are you even listening to me?" he asked. "What? Yeah, sorry, department politics sounds frustrating." "That's not what I was talking about." I looked up from my laptop. "What?" "I was telling you about my day, about the new project I'm working on, but you're not paying attention." "I'm working, Marcus, I have a deadline." "You always have a deadline, you've been glued to that laptop for weeks." "That's rich coming from someone who grades papers at 2 in the morning." "That's different." "How?" "Because I still make time for us, for you. When's the last time we had a real conversation, or went out, or did anything besides coexist in the same space while you type?" His words stung because they were partially true. I had been absorbed in my work, tunnel-visioned on finishing my thesis. "So what, I'm supposed to put my career on hold to entertain you?" "That's not what I'm saying." "It sounds like what you're saying." "I'm saying I miss you," he said, his voice rising. "I miss my boyfriend, the person who used to talk to me about things other than line breaks and poetic meter." "Well, excuse me for being passionate about my work." "I love that you're passionate, but you're using it as an excuse to avoid other things." "Like what?" "Like us, like the fact that we haven't had sex in 3 weeks, like how you flinch every time I try to plan something for more than a day in advance." I stood up defensive. "That's not fair." "Isn't it? You're so focused on your thesis that you're neglecting everything else, including me." "You know what? Maybe I need to focus on my thesis. Maybe I need to build my own career instead of just being Marcus Reid's boyfriend." The words hung in the air, sharp and cutting. Marcus's expression closed off. "Is that how you feel, like you're just my boyfriend?" "Sometimes," I admitted. "People ask about you all the time. How's Marcus? How's his class going? How's his new project?" And I'm just Ethan, the poet, the one who's dadding the professor. "I had no idea you felt that way." "Because we don't talk anymore, apparently." He grabbed his keys. "I need to go for a drive." "Marcus." "I just need some space, Ethan, to think." He left and I sank back into my chair, immediately regretting everything I'd said. The apartment felt too quiet, too empty. I tried to work but couldn't focus, kept checking my phone for a text that didn't come. He returned 2 hours later, calmer but still tense. "We need to talk," he said. "I know, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have." "Let me go first," he interrupted. "You're right, we haven't been communicating well, and I've been so focused on making this relationship work that I haven't paid attention to whether you're happy." "I am happy," I said, I'm also stressed and scared." "Of what?" I took a breath. of losing myself, of becoming just your partner instead of my own person. My whole life I've been working towards something, my degree, my career, my voice as a writer. And then I fell in love with you and suddenly everything shifted. I moved here, changed my plans, rearranged my life. And don't get me wrong, I wanted to. But sometimes I worry that I'm losing Ethan in the process of becoming Ethan and Marcus. He sat down next to me, taking my hands. I never want you to lose yourself. You're brilliant and talented, and you deserve to be recognized for that, not as my appendage. I know you don't see me that way, but sometimes I feel like everyone else does. Then we change that, he said. We make sure people know you as Ethan Caldwell, poet and scholar who happens to be in a relationship, not the other way around. How? I don't know yet, but we figure it out together. And in the meantime, you're right, we need to communicate better. I need to not take it personally when you're busy with work, and you need to tell me when you're feeling overwhelmed instead of shutting me out. I can do that. And maybe we can schedule specific couple time so we're both making sure our relationship gets attention even when life gets crazy. Date nights, I said. Exactly. We talked for hours that night, really talked, laying bare our fears and insecurities. It wasn't comfortable, but it was necessary. We came out the other side stronger with a better understanding of each other's needs. True to our word, we instituted date nights every Friday, no matter what. Sometimes we went out, sometimes we stayed in, but we made time for each other, for us. The thesis eventually got finished, defended successfully, and accepted with minor revisions. My advisor called it a significant contribution to the field, and I felt vindicated. Marcus threw me a small party with friends from my workshop, and watching him mingle easily with my academic crowd, I felt a swell of love. This was my person, my partner, not despite our challenges but because we worked through them. Spring brought new opportunities. One of the journals that had published my work reached out to ask if I'd be interested in joining their editorial board. It was unpaid but prestigious, a chance to shape conversations in contemporary poetry. You should do it, Marcus said when I showed him the email. It's a lot of work, and I'm already starting to apply for teaching positions. Which is exactly why you should do it. It'll look great on your CV and you'll be networking with established poets. He was right, of course. I accepted the position and threw myself into reading submissions and attending editorial meetings. It was exhausting but exhilarating being part of the conversation in a new way. Marcus, meanwhile, was up for tenure review. The process was stressful, involving extensive documentation of his teaching, research, and service. He'd stay up late working on his portfolio, anxiety radiating off him in waves. What if they don't give it to me? He asked one night, staring at his laptop. They will, I said. You're an incredible teacher, your research is innovative, your students love you. But what if they don't? I closed his laptop and pulled him to his feet. Then we figure it out. Maybe you stay here without tenure, maybe we move somewhere else, maybe you do something completely different, but we figure it out together. When did you get so wise? I learned from my boyfriend, he's very smart. He kissed me, soft and grateful. I don't deserve you. Definitely not, I agreed, but you're stuck with me anyway. The tenure decision came through in April, approved unanimously. The celebration was epic. His department threw a party, my father drove down, and our apartment was full of people and laughter and champagne. To Professor Reid, someone toasted, the best addition to the architecture department in years. And to Ethan, Marcus added, pulling me close, for putting up with me through this process. It wasn't that bad, I said. Liar, he whispered in my ear. With his tenure secured and my thesis defended, we could finally relax and think about the future. We'd been living in survival mode, getting through the semester, the thesis, the tenure review. Now we could breathe. What do you want? Marcus asked one lazy Sunday morning. We were still in bed, the sun streaming through the windows. We'd finally gotten around to putting curtains on. Right now, coffee. I mean long-term, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I thought about it. Teaching, probably, maybe at a small liberal arts college where I can focus on undergraduate education. Still writing, hopefully publishing a collection of poetry, living somewhere with good coffee and better bookstores. What about us? He asked. Where do we fit in that picture? Everywhere, I said simply. You're part of all of it, teaching where you can teach too or where we're both happy, writing love poems about you, drinking coffee together. You're not separate from my future, Marcus, you are my future. His eyes got suspiciously bright. That was very romantic. I'm a poet, it's kind of my job. What if I asked you to marry me? My heart stopped. Are you asking me to marry you? Not yet, he said, but I want to marry you, build a life with you, grow old with you, but I also know you're young, you're just starting your career and maybe that's not what you want right now. It's not about what I want right now, I said slowly, it's about what I want forever and I want you for all of it. Is that a yes? Are you actually proposing? I don't have a ring. I don't need a ring. Ethan Caldwell, he said, cupping my face in his hands, will you marry me? Yes, I said, laughing and crying at the same time. Yes, obviously yes. We spent the rest of the day in bed making plans and making love and making promises. We'd tell our families in person, we decided. We'd have a small wedding, nothing fancy. We'd take our time planning because we weren't in a rush, we had the rest of our lives. When we finally emerged to make dinner, I caught sight of us in the hallway mirror, Marcus with his arm around me, both of us grinning like idiots. We looked right together, we looked like forever. We told my father first, driving back to my hometown for a weekend visit. He greeted us at the door with hugs, seeming genuinely happy to see us. Over dinner, takeout Chinese, our family tradition, we caught up on life. My father talked about work, about the garden he was planting, about running into my high school English teacher at the grocery store. She asked about you, he said. Wanted to know what you were doing with your degree. I told her you were teaching and publishing poetry. She seemed impressed. Teaching is still theoretical, I said. I'm interviewing at a few places but nothing's concrete yet. You'll land something, my father said confidently. You're brilliant. After dinner, as we were clearing the table, Marcus caught my eye and nodded. Dad, I said, my hands suddenly shaky, we have something to tell you. He looked between us, his expression carefully neutral. Okay. We're engaged, I said. Marcus proposed and I said yes, and we're going to get married. The silence that followed felt eternal. Then my father smiled, genuinely smiled, and pulled me into a hug. Congratulations, kid, I'm happy for you. Really? I asked, surprised by how easily he'd taken it. Really, you two are good together, and Marcus, he turned to him, you better take care of him. Always, Marcus said. My father hugged him too, and I saw Marcus's shoulders relax. We'd been worried about this conversation, but it had been almost anticlimactic in its ease. So when's the wedding? My father asked. We're thinking fall, I said, something small, immediate family and close friends. Can I walk you down the aisle? The question caught me off guard. I'd like that. We spent the rest of the weekend planning, my father surprisingly invested in the details. He had opinions about venues and catering and whether we should have a DJ or a band. It was sweet. Seeing him embrace this new chapter. On our drive back, Marcus reached over and took my hand. That went well, he said. Better than I expected. Your dad's come a long way. We all have, I said. Summer arrived, and with it, my first real teaching position, a lecturer role at a small college an hour away. It wasn't tenure track, but it was a foot in the door, a chance to prove myself. Marcus supported my decision to take it, even though it would mean a lot of driving. We'll make it work, he said, and who knows, maybe a tenure track position will open up there or you'll find something closer. My first day teaching was terrifying and exhilarating. Standing in front of a classroom of undergraduates talking about poetry, I felt like I'd found my calling. These were my people, young writers trying to find their voices, students who looked at literature with fresh eyes. One student raised her hand during a discussion of contemporary queer poetry. Do you write poetry, Professor Caldwell? She asked. I do, I admitted. Can we read some of your work? I hesitated, then nodded. I'll bring some in next class. That evening, I selected a few of my published poems, not the explicitly romantic ones, but pieces about identity, belonging, finding your place in the world. The next class, I distributed copies and watched nervously as students read. The discussion that followed was incredible. They connected with the work, asked thoughtful questions, shared their own experiences. One student, a young trans man, thanked me afterward for being visible as a queer educator. It matters, he said, seeing someone like you in front of the classroom. I called Marcus on my drive home, voice shaking with emotion as I recounted the conversation. You're making a difference, he said, that's what teaching is about. I love you, I said, thank you for supporting this. Always, he said, though I'll admit I miss having you home during the day. Miss you too. We fell into a new routine, me teaching 3 days a week, working from home the other days. Marcus adjusted his schedule when he could to match mine, and we made the most of our time together. The wedding planning continued in the background, a source of excited discussion and occasional stress. We kept it simple: a ceremony in a garden near our apartment, reception at a local restaurant, 50 guests. My father helped with logistics, Marcus's sister flew in from the East Coast to help with planning, and my workshop friends offered to read poetry during the ceremony. This is really happening, I said one night, addressing wedding invitations. Getting cold feet, Marcus asked. Not even a little, just amazed. A year ago I was living in my childhood bedroom, single, stressed about my thesis. Now I'm teaching, publishing, about to marry the love of my life. Life moves fast when you let it, he said. No regrets.